The first thing we need to get together when we're going to start doing some light painting is some camera gear. Pretty obvious, but hey, there's a whole lot of different levels. So let's talk about the different levels. There's basically 3 different levels we're going to need when we're talking about photography gear. So the absolute minimum that you require if you want to start doing some light painting is a camera, a tripod, and some sort of trigger release. Now, okay, so amongst other things, one of the things I need to be very, very straight up and down with you about is the camera brand that I'm affiliated with. Now, I am an international Olympus visionary. So what that means is that Olympus, as a global company, work with me. I create a massive amount of work with their cameras. I love their gear. I've been using Olympus cameras for years now and I love them. However, so all of the cameras you're going to see me using through these tutorials are Olympus cameras. This video has been captured on Olympus camera. All of the light painting we're doing is going to be on Olympus cameras. But this is super, super important for you to understand. It doesn't matter what camera brand or what camera type you use, so long as you cover these things that we're about to cover. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I don't care what camera you use. This is the very first camera that I ever owned. It is a Canon 450D. Now I'm going to show you some of the images that I have captured with this camera, and what it will make you realize is that actually the camera that you use doesn't really matter. Some of the most popular, even famous images that I've captured were captured with this, a Canon 450D, a 12-year-old camera with a plastic fantastic lens. And look, if I'm really honest with you, I plug this thing in sometimes now and I create images and you wouldn't be able to tell me what it was captured on. So it's really important for you, and you can buy this camera now for 50 bucks on eBay or wherever you buy your secondhand gear. So the brand of camera that you use doesn't matter, but there are some pretty basic things that your camera needs to be able to do. So if we look at this is one of the most basic cameras that Olympus makes. It's an absolute beautiful light painting camera, but it has to do a couple of things. So the camera that you use has to be able to do a manual exposure, anything 5, 10, 20, 30 seconds. So that's a must. You have to be able to control the camera manually. The camera should have bulb mode, and you need a tripod. So you need a really basic camera that you can do manual settings on. You need to have a tripod. Now, tripods are an interesting one. Yes, you can use a super basic plastic tripod. It doesn't matter. The camera sits on top of it. You open the shutter and you take an image. Of course, the more stable that your camera tripod is, the more stable your image is going to be. And sometimes we're doing long exposures. However, you can buy a $30 tripod, attach it to a super basic camera, and you're going to be able to take a light painting image. Obviously, as these things get better in quality, so the better quality tripod, ones that are a bit more stable, are going to be easier to use. It doesn't mean you can't create a light painting image, it's just going to be easier. So one of the things, thinking about tripods, is even if you have the most basic, cheap tripod, one of the things I see most people do is they have their tripod, but they don't attach the plate firmly enough. So I'll go over and check that you're up and running. I'll have a look at the camera. The camera is moving, and it's simply because it's not attached to the camera properly. Get that plate on nice and tight, attach it to the tripod, and you'll be fine. And we'll be going through this stuff in spades as we start getting into the physical tutorials. So you need a tripod, you need a camera that can do manual mode. Don't worry too much about lenses. Even the most basic lenses are fine. It doesn't really matter. The vast majority of the images that I take are at f-stops. They're not at really wide open f-stops. They're at f-stops that even the most basic lens will do. The other thing you should really have, even as part of your basic kit, is some form of camera release. Now this one here, I think I paid about $30 or $40 for it. It's quite an expensive one. You can buy really cheap camera releases now on eBay. What that allows you to do is plug it into your camera, and when you're on bulb mode, you simply just click and lock it, and that opens up the shutter to do a long exposure. Why is that important? Well, it allows us to go past 30 seconds. So most cameras in bulb mode, in manual mode, the longest you can go is 30 seconds. Some cameras can go longer, but basically most of them are 30 seconds. So if you've got a camera release, plug it into your camera and you can open up indefinitely. And you're going to learn in the next little while why that is really important. The other thing you should always have, and this is for safety, is a headlamp. Even the most basic, cheap headlamp is perfect. Why is this important? Well, we do light painting at night when it's dark, right? So you want to have a headlamp on so when you're walking around, you can be safe. So what I promise you is that if you have a basic camera that can go into manual mode, if you have you don't even have to have a release, but have a release and a tripod, you're going to be able to get started light painting. So what does a mid-level sort of light painting kit look like? So let's think about lenses. So if we're moving up and we're really sort of thinking about what we're going to, maybe something a little wider. So maybe a nice 24mm, slightly faster lens, something with an f-stop, maybe f2.8. f4 is fine, so something a little wider. So if I'm thinking about adding to a slightly more advanced kit, I might be thinking about that, lenses, but it's not that important. So a mid-level kit, here's one of the things that I reckon you'd want to grab. So this is a product by Harnell, it's called a Harnell Capture. What's the value of this? Well, if we have a cable release, big helicopter flying over, doesn't matter. If we have a cable release, here's what it means. We're kind of attached to our camera, yeah? Perfect for turning it on, holding it, and then we walk out and we do our light painting. If you have a wireless remote, what it means is we can be 10, 20 meters away doing our light painting and controlling our camera from here. The other thing that these remotes have is the ability to set the length of the exposure. We'll cover that way more in one of the tutorials, but there are some advantages to being able to say on here, I want a 2-minute, a 3-minute, a 4-minute exposure, set it off. It opens the shutter in bulb mode for 2 or 3 minutes. I use that all the time. So that's the next level. You want to add that to your kit. These are not cheap. Some of the really good quality ones are quite expensive. I've had good luck with these Harnell Captures. I've got a couple of them. All right, so that's, you know, if we're starting to move up. So what is an advanced light painting kit? What do I have in my bag when I go out light painting? Because I think, you know, I'm kind of advanced light painter. Now, here's something that's really interesting that a lot of people don't think about. If we're thinking about tripods, there's some real advantages to having a lightweight tripod. They cost a little more. So something like this is carbon fiber. This is a 3-legged thing tripod. My actual fancy pants tripod, that camera there that you're from is sitting on it. But what it does is it allows me to, obviously carrying less stuff when we're going out, but I can take this head and I can remove it and I can turn it upside down and I can put the camera underneath. Why does that matter? Well, you're going to see, and we're going to be doing this a lot through these tutorials, is getting the camera as low to the ground as possible. That gives us a viewpoint looking up. That can be a real advantage if we're wanting to push ourselves and stretch ourselves with our light painting. So that's what a fancy pants tripod looks like. It's carbon fiber, it's lightweight, and it allows us to rotate the post so we can take the camera right down on top of the ground. Again, not super important. The other thing, you know, this is something that is quite new to me. We're going to be touching on this. A camera rotation device. All this is a landscape head that gives us different degrees of rotation and an L bracket. There is a tutorial we're going to do on camera rotation. You'll see how this works. That's pretty advanced, right? So, you know, in my very fancy pants camera bag, I might have 2 or 3 different lenses if I'm getting creative. Look, for me, I sometimes have 2 bodies. We'll do a whole tutorial on that. Sometimes I have 2 cameras with 2 different focal lengths pointing from different directions, both connected to the same remote. It's 2 for 1. It's almost like lazy light painting. It means that I'm setting 2 cameras off at once, and I get double the images. There's a whole lot of reasons. We'll cover that. You're going to want to take batteries out with you. So, you know, if we're talking about a more advanced kit, multiple batteries. Sometimes I go out into the night and I'm gone for 2 or 3 hours and I'm taking a couple of 100 photos of long exposure. So you might want to have a few extra batteries on you. But yeah, basically, look, you know, starting off with a simple camera, basic lens, basic tripod, a basic trigger, I promise you, and I'll show you, that you're going to get some absolutely gorgeous light painting images with those. Please, please, please do not ever think that the quality of your camera is proportional to how much fun you have creating light painting images. Some of the images I love the most that I've taken over the last 10 years were taken with the most basic cameras. I'm going to show you a whole lot of images now that were taken with this. This is the Olympus EM10. It is their base model interchangeable lens camera. And I'll show you some images now that you absolutely would not know would taken on this camera. Plenty of dynamic range, plenty of sharpness, plenty of fun, and that's all that matters. Don't stress about gear. Whatever you have is fine to get started. Brilliant, that's gear. Now we get to have a look at some light painting gear. Woohoo!